watching Channel 20 TV. Be with Channel 20 and let us make things better together.
Dear viewers, we'd like to welcome you to Channel 20's today's show. We are having a guest-centric discussion show. And today we have got with us a very special guest. His name is Francesco Marelli. He's the head of Knowledge Center of Sarayo. Sarayo is a full form like security improvements through research, technology, and innovation. It's based in Geneva. We would like to explore regarding Sarayo and its contribution, its knowledge center, the way Francesco is leading his beautiful and dynamic team, the way they're contributing for the world citizen. We'd like to explore. So without further delay, let us all welcome our today's guest, Mr. Francesco Marelli. Hello, Francesco. How are you?
Fine, thank you. And thank you for this interview.
Thank you very much. And as I was telling in the introduction part to our audience, that we'd like to explore more about you, more about your knowledge center, and more about the security improvements through research, technology, and innovation. So can you please start explaining about yourself, your center, in short, please?
Yes, with pleasure. So, well, my name is Francesco Marelli, and I'm responsible here in Geneva for the Knowledge Center Sirio, which is part of UNICRI. UNICRI is a part of United Nations, and our mandate is to do research, analysis, training in the area of crime prevention. The purpose of the Knowledge Center here in Geneva is to basically understand what are the risks and opportunities connected to technology. So in practical terms, we want to understand how technology can be potentially misused, maliciously used by violent non-state actors like terrorists or like organized crime. And at the same time, also, we want to understand how technology can offer innovative ideas, innovative solutions to combat the same problem, organized crime and terrorism. So that's really in a few words.
That's really nice and good for the introduction. Now, Francesco, I'd like to just go through a little bit in a simpler way for the sake of our audience understanding and for their comfort. Now, once you're talking about that you were involving research, and you're talking about UNICRI and Sarayo, that you were doing research relating to the technology. Now, I would like to ask you in a non-biased way, whenever you do conduct a research, once you're targeting to conduct a research, are you targeting basically for the particular group in your mind or particular continent in your mind? Or you to go for a particular agenda, regardless the terrorist group, regardless the continent, regardless the ethnicity? Do you like to focus on the issue, or you go by continent-wise or technology hiccup-wise? How do you go?
Well, let's say that geographically, as part of United Nations, we want to, let's say, represent all member states. So we don't have any, let's say, exclusion. We, on the contrary, we want to involve all different regions. Obviously, there are some dynamics that, at regional level have a different, different aspect, and therefore, sometimes the focus can be more regional. But let's say that, our outreach is all member states. Now, in terms of thematics, what we do is that we tend to, let's say, identify specific topics that we want to discuss in terms of technology. So, for example, we have been discussed last year about technology security in the area of weapons of mass destruction. So, for example, the risks that technology will offer new opportunities for terrorists to develop and deploy weapons of mass destruction, and at the same time also try to understand how innovative technology, I'm thinking about big data analytics, blockchain, artificial intelligence, can at the same time offer new possibilities, new opportunities to combat, to prevent the problem of weapons of mass destruction, terrorism. The same we did in the area of supply chain security in critical areas like food or like precious metals. We've been discussing also about blockchain. I've been discussing about biotechnologies. So that's, I mean, if there is, let's say, division in terms to be a thematic level, let me also say that, of course, we want to involve member states, which are, let's say, the main target as part of United Nations. But when we talk about technology, it's very important also to involve, the producers of technology, academia, industry. So those are the ones that produce technology and can help us to understand how technology can be, let's say, adapted, shaped to meet the country's basically priorities and needs.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Now, Francesco, I'd like to ask you, in general, your center, specifically if I mentioned that security improvements through research, technology, and innovation, your knowledge center, how many research papers that come out within a year time? How many you do in average?
Yeah, well, actually, what we do is that we produce documents which are just for let's say, for member states, for a limited audience. So we don't want to publish in a website, but at the same time, also sometimes we publish documents which are basically you can find on the website. Last year, for example, we published one document. We released a document on the UNICLO website, which is about social media and COVID, in particular the disinformation, maliciously using social media to disinform people about COVID. Let me say that the reason why certain reports are not published is not because they contain confidential information. We don't have any, confidential information. It's just that we don't want to, let's say, offer, food for thought for bad intentions, considering that we also, analyze the potential, the malicious use of technology. But obviously, when it is about coming up with ideas, solutions, we are very much interested to publish and to inform a general public. So again, going back to your questions, last year we published one report, and but at the same time also we produce 2 reports that are say distributed only for, let's say, a limited audience.
That's good. Now, another question I would like to ask in this regard: what's next? That means whenever you publish a report, after heading your dynamic team, after investing your certain valuable time with data collection, research, and everything, and once you publish the report for a certain group, no matter is it for the public domain or it's for the others, then what's next? Do you follow up the execution? Do you follow up the actions for the relevant party, or you think your job is done, that's it?
No, absolutely. I mean, it is important that what we produce is somehow actionable. We are not, university, we're not academia, and we don't want to compete with, let's say, theoretical discussion. This is something that we know that universities can do much better than us. So our focus is more about, identifying some actions, some activities that can be implemented potentially by member states. So, and I give you a practical example. I mentioned before about this report on disinformation on social media. So this report has been published, but now what we want to do is to transform basically our knowledge into practical training training for member states to do two things. The first is to identify disinformation on social media. And the second thing is to understand what to do, and in particular, not only to detect disinformation, but also to debunk false information, which is the most difficult part. And that part of training can be done, therefore, for, let's say, a specific audience which has, let's say, some responsibility in detecting and debunking false information. Like, for example, all staff responsible for media communication in the key ministries, of course, law enforcement, Ministry of Health, environment. We know that this is a topic that involves different ministries. So that's so that's basically what. Sorry, and the second thing is the techniques to debunk the false information. So training to do to understand how this information works and what you can do in practical terms to detect and debunk false information.
Now, as you were mentioning regarding the recent report that was being published, the virus of disinformation, I would like to just ask you, very frankly, did you get support whenever you were collecting data from different countries, specifically during this COVID-19? Did you get the full support and cooperation from all the countries where they open up to share with you, or you struggle to collect the data?
Well, I have to say that in general, we don't want to impose, our activities, and therefore we have always, let's say, a clear understanding with the member states that we provide support when country states they need it and they request, and therefore, from this point of view, in terms of information sharing, we don't have any particular problems. Obviously, there is the issue of confidentiality, but as I said before, we don't need in most of the case confidential information, and certainly we don't use for our studies. Now, when it goes to social media, what we did is that we've been monitoring, the disinformation through social media. So those information, they don't come, let's say, from member states. It's more about our work in identifying, how, unfortunately, social media has been used maliciously by violent state actors. In particular, I had to say that the far right extremists have been particularly active, but the same also terrorist organizations connected to Al Qaeda, to ISIS, and also organized crime. Organized crime is also violent actors that have been very active in disinforming people about COVID. So what we did is that through social media we've been monitoring the activities, the disinformation campaign of those non-violent actors.
Mm-hmm. Now, Francesco, if I would like to give you a metaphoric example, for example, like in my grandfather's time, we used to say, being a police, if I fail to identify the movements of the thief, it may mean that thief has a smarter idea, smarter intellectuality, smarter technology than mine. So my question in this regard, that's why I'm using this example, what do you reckon, because from your report you have identified the fake news or disinformation things during this, COVID-19, what might be the percentage of this fake news or disinformation? That's my first question. And the second question is, why can't we or our law enforcement agencies in different countries can't overcome them rapidly, drastically? Is this something out of their grip? Is this something out of their imagination? Or where is the gap?
Well, starting from the first point, there is a misinformation and a disinformation. Misinformation, the difference between misinformation and disinformation is that with disinformation there is intent. So you know that you are spreading false information with the intent to damage a person, organization. Misinformation is that yeah, you also spread false news, but you don't have this bad intention. Now, of course, I cannot say that whatever you can find at the moment on social media is disinformation. There is also a lot of misinformation. There are also a lot of individuals that, without a bad intention, unfortunately, they are spreading false information. Let's say that our target, since also we are mandated to study organized crime and terrorism, it is, of course, the disinformation, the bad intention. And I have to say that, unfortunately, we found that there are individuals, there are groups belonging to this, what I call the violent non-state actors that have, capacity. They are very good in maliciously using social media and other technologies. I give you one practical example. Something that they know how to do it, and they do it very efficiently, is that they can attract audience, potential new followers on the traditional social media, like Twitter, like Facebook, where they know that there is a form of control, so they need to be also careful in using certain words, in expressing their opinion. So they tend to camouflage their intention, their strategy. However, what they do is that they tend to move discussion into more private blogs or channels where there is less control, and of course they can be more open in trying to instigate their ideas, to instigate terrorism, recruit new persons. So that's unfortunately something that we saw.
Yeah. And my second question was relating to the law and enforcement agencies.
Yes.
Why they can't predict in advance? Why they can't be proactive? I know they're proactive, but do you reckon it's not enough, or do you think it's okay, or there's a room for improvement?
Well, there is certainly room for improvement. Obviously, the problem of disinformation is not new. It's something that we saw already, has been discussed already, certainly in the last 10 years. COVID was basically an instrument. COVID pandemics and all the whatever was created with COVID pandemics became, unfortunately, a means to expand, to proliferate disinformation. And that's something that honestly I don't think that not only law enforcement but not everybody was prepared to face. I would say also that the media communication, how to manage media, is something new. It's something that it is, there is not much expertise. Obviously, there are governments that have made already, great investments, and I think about, opportunities like, major events where there is, a lot of, investments in terms of reinforcing media communication. But in general, detecting, debunking fake news is something that is relatively new, and therefore there is certainly room for improvement. And the other problem is that, as I mentioned before, there are users of social media that do not trust governments, they do not trust also official media, and they tend to live in a sort of echo chamber, where they communicate only with persons that with whom they share the same ideas, most often the same conspiracy ideas, and all those things that can disinform about COVID. And how to reach those individuals, how to try to debunk fake news by reaching this audience is something extremely, extremely complex, that if we don't find a solution, I think it will be difficult, if not impossible, to stop disinformation.
Mm-hmm. And now, then I'm going to ask you today, whenever we are talking to you, that means in 2021, at this moment, can we take help from artificial intelligence or even any specific tools which can identify the disinformation and misinformation? Or you think still we haven't developed the technology yet which can differentiate between dis and misinformation?
Technology can do a lot, and certainly there are applications based on artificial intelligence, on big data analytics that can do a lot. They can be excellent instruments in the hands of fact checkers. The problem with technology, or the limits of technology at this stage, is that the technology can be very good for the detection part. So you can use technology to identify an information which is not true, which is false. But when it goes to debunk false information, to explain, to demonstrate that the information is false and that there are different elements that can explain the problem, that's where at the moment there are let's say that technology cannot replace human minds, human skills, in particular in terms of debunking. And if you want, as a journalist, that's also something that you know much better than me, how important is human skills in this regard.
True. Before going to our last part, I would like to just request you to explain very briefly your research methodology or the way you develop the report. Do you follow any particular model, particular methodology, particular style, particular approach? I mean, what's the normal pattern or the framework that you follow while doing certain research or report outwork?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for this question, because indeed we have developed a methodology which is based on 3 steps. The first step is we try to understand how technology can be maliciously used by organized crime, by terrorists. What we do is that of course, we go through literature, we go through existing case studies, and based on this information, we create fictional risk scenarios. So they are fictional in a sense that they take place in a fictional country that we call the Blue Land, but they are based on real elements. So with these risk scenarios, we are able to show in practical terms what could go wrong. But at the same time, we basically create something which is based on abstract model, can be applied to any countries. So that's the first step. The second step is we try to understand what you can do to mitigate, to prevent and combat the problem of misuse of technology. And in this regard, having the risk scenarios is very helpful, because we can attract, we usually organize call for ideas on the website. So we basically ask support from academia, from industry, from member states, and how to find practical solutions to use technology to respond to the problems which has been identified in the risk scenarios. And again, risk scenarios help us to be, very practical. So we don't come up with, the list of, tools, technology tools, but we try to identify some practical, solutions to a specific problem. And then the first step is we produce a report, we disseminate a report, but also at the same time we try to test ideas. Of course, it depends if there are good ideas, if there are technology available, if there are member states available. One very good example for me is we did a test together with Italian governments and CERN. CERN, as you know, here in Geneva, they have a large expertise on big data analytics, among other things, but they don't have an expertise on organized crime, obviously. So what we did is that we use some data coming from the Italian government, and we put this data into the digital platform developed by CERN, a digital platform on big data analytics. And what we did is that we tried to understand if this technology platform, which has been developed for scientific purpose, for something which was not connected to organized crime, could help the Italian authorities to better understand the problem of organized crime and basically have a clear picture that could also help to provide strategic inputs for investigation. It was just a pilot, but it was very important for us to review results together with some Italian judges here in Geneva, and their feedback was extremely positive to the extent that now they ask us to develop a prototype. And I like to mention this idea because what we did is that we simply adapt an existing technology to solve or to try to solve a very complex problem, which is the one of organized crime in Italy. So no need to say reinvent the wheel to invent a new technology. It is much more effective sometimes to try to use what you have, but but you need to adapt, you need to customize so that it can be used by the member states.
Yep, rightly so. Francesco, you worked nicely for last year and the year before, and specifically if I mention the COVID-19 era that you've been working, are you panicked? Are you scared? Are you worried? Because the way we experience the disinformation regarding COVID-19, are you getting the same pain, same worry regarding the vaccine? Because vaccine is on the way and somewhere it's already been started, it's distribution process. So are you worried as well in regards to vaccine that it may create some commercial chaos, it may create some fake news, fake misinformation, disinformation?
Yes, unfortunately, the answer is yes. I'm very concerned. Just to prepare myself for this interview, I went through some, social media, in particular, some channels that they were being used, that they are used by violent internet state actors, and I found already, many attempt to disinform people about the vaccine, about the cure, to jeopardize the credibility of the government, to jeopardize the vaccination campaign of the government. And also what is very disturbing, attempt to sell fake cure or fake vaccine on the internet, including on the darknet. There is even attempt to sell false vaccines and basically through bitcoins, so to they can, and we know that actually, bitcoins is something that have attracted organized crime because they have the idea that it is easy to conceal the illegal profits by using bitcoins. So yes, unfortunately, I had to say that there will be massive disinformation about vaccine, organized by violent state actors, and I keep repeating this because that's our only intention. So our only focus is to study how and why organized crime and radical and terrorist groups are spreading disinformation through social media.
So in this particular case, as you said, you were worried too, you were concerned too, like the way I am, like the way other people are. What's your suggestion? What's your recommendation? What's your advice specifically to WHO, World Health Organization? Because they are the granddaddy, they're the big daddy, they are the parental body for entire health community of the world. So do you have any advice particularly for them, or do you think let's wait and wait for the good time? We may experience something good and better.
Well, let me say, I can tell you what we plan to do for this year, and I'm confident that if we succeed, this can also help WHO. What we want to do is, as I said, we want to help member states providing tools for detecting and debunking fake news. At the same time, also our idea is to create a sort of trusted community. So not only providing tools, but also inspiring the creation of a trusted community of experts that whose objective, the main objective, is to create, to detect and debunk disinformation in connections to COVID. Obviously, we don't want to, let's say, guide or provide an instruction that wouldn't make any sense. This should be, let's say, really, decentralized community, trusted and decentralized community of persons, individuals who basically have the skills to use social media and try to debunk false information. Our target will be disinformation, but needless to say, this will be also help. It will also help to stop or to contribute to mitigate to the mitigation of misinformation. So if we succeed in creating this trusted community, I think there will be a positive impact to address this very complex problem.
Mm-hmm. I hope so. So we are almost in the end of our show, Francesco. How did you feel? How's your experience being, with us today with Channel 20? If you can share something for our audience, how did you feel?
Well, I mean, thank you for for this interview. It has been great. For us, it's very important to have the opportunities to share, our ideas, our results. As I said, there are certain reports that we don't share, but again, when it is about findings, about innovative ideas, we are very happy to use these opportunities. So I want to thank Channel 20 for this opportunity, and well, I look forward to sharing other findings in the future.
I'm hopeful that Channel 20 will work with you, and we are already committed with Unique Cry that we have been working and supporting and cooperating with them. So thank you once again, Francesco. And with this note, audience, we'd like to end up our show, and we'd like to tell you, wherever you are, be honest, wake up and rely on the information. Do not rely on misinformation or disinformation. There's no problem of acquiring knowledge. Acquire the knowledge from the right place and let us win together, because this is the time we to be united and better together. Thank you. Thank you very much.